Miguel Uribe Turbay was a rising force in Colombian politics, just 39 and already a senator for the right-wing Democratic Center Party. Born into a family with a long history of public service, he was seen by many as a natural leader, someone destined to shape the nation's future. He was running for president, promising strength and order in a country still haunted by violence. His campaign speeches echoed through city plazas and rural towns, calling for unity and a renewed sense of national pride. Uribe's charm and direct way of speaking made him a symbol of hope for a new generation, eager to move past decades of fighting. Young people in particular saw in him a chance for real change, someone who listened to their concerns and inspired them to believe in a better tomorrow. His campaign was full of energy, reaching from big cities to small towns, always focusing on talking to voters face to face. He believed that real leadership meant being present, hearing people's stories, and building trust one conversation at a time. But being so well known made him an easy target in a country with a long history of killing political leaders. The shadow of past assassinations loomed over every public appearance, a constant reminder of the risks he faced. Even with the dangers, Uribe kept going, determined not to be silenced by fear. He often spoke about courage, insisting that Colombia's future depended on leaders who would not back down, no matter the threats. With every gathering, his power grew. He was no longer just another candidate, but a main voice in Colombia's future. His rallies drew thousands, and his message resonated far beyond the political elite. His killing was not just losing a person, but putting out a political fire many believed could lead the country. The sense of loss was profound, as if a bright light had been suddenly snuffed out. The killing sent shockwaves through Colombia, a harsh reminder of the dark forces threatening its democracy. News of his death dominated headlines, and people everywhere struggled to make sense of the tragedy. Supporters were sad, and the country was left to wonder what this act of violence would mean for its future. Many questioned whether hope could survive in a place where dreams are so often cut short. The hope he stood for was suddenly, brutally cut short. Yet for many, his legacy remains a call to keep fighting for a better Colombia, no matter the cost. June 7, 2025 began as another campaign day for Uribe in Bogota, a city buzzing with anticipation and hope. The air was thick with the energy of political change as supporters and volunteers prepared for what was supposed to be a day of unity and inspiration. People from all walks of life gathered in a working-class neighborhood, drawn by the promise of a better future and the excitement of seeing a candidate up close. The event was lively, full of music, dancing, and good feelings. Children waved flags, families cheered, and the crowd pulsed with optimism. For a moment, it felt like nothing could go wrong. But as Uribe walked through the crowd, shaking hands and greeting supporters, a young man suddenly pulled out a gun and fired multiple shots at close range, shattering the festive atmosphere in an instant. Uribe was hit 3 times, collapsing to the ground as panic and confusion erupted. People screamed and scattered, desperate to escape the chaos. His bodyguards reacted with lightning speed, tackling the teenage shooter and preventing him from fleeing the scene, even as the crowd surged in fear. The attacker, injured during the struggle, was quickly subdued and taken into custody by police right there at the rally. Medics rushed to Uribe's side, working frantically to stabilize him as police cordoned off the area, turning the rally into a crime scene within minutes. News of the attack spread like wildfire, with live broadcasts and social media updates shocking not just Colombia, but the entire world. The gathering, once filled with hope and excitement, was now marked by fear and tragedy. A place transformed in seconds. The swift action of security forces ensured the shooter would face justice, but the damage, both physical and emotional, was already done. The attack was a direct strike against Colombia's fragile democracy, exposing deep divisions and vulnerabilities in the nation's political life. The country was left in a state of shock and deep uncertainty as citizens struggled to process the violence and what it meant for the future. The violence at the heart of the campaign trail was impossible to ignore, leaving a scar on the nation's collective memory and raising urgent questions about the path ahead. After the shooting, Uribe was rushed to a Bogota hospital in very bad shape. He had many surgeries, but the injuries, especially to his head, were terrible. For 2 months he stayed in a coma, not responding, as the country worriedly waited for news. His family stayed by his bed. Supporters gathered outside, lighting candles and praying for a miracle. The country's political future seemed to depend on what happened to him. Despite doctors working very hard, hope faded as weeks went by. On August 11, 2025, Uribe died from bleeding in his brain caused by his wounds. The news brought a new wave of sadness and anger across Colombia. His death was not just a personal loss, but a national tragedy. The attempted killing had become a successful one, making the country's feeling of crisis even deeper. The whole ordeal made Colombians face the brutal results of political violence. Losing Uribe left a big empty space in the country's leadership and spirit. The shooter was only 15, a minor whose name was kept secret by law. His age shocked the country, making people wonder how a teenager could be pulled into such violence. He was not a known extremist, but a boy from a working-class Bogota neighborhood. After he was arrested, he admitted, "I did it for money for my family." The reason was not a belief, but needing money badly. He'd been used by criminal groups. His confession changed the focus of the investigation, from politics to the deeper social problem of young people being easily hurt. The case showed how criminal groups use poor young people, turning them into tools for deadly missions. The idea of a child killer horrified Colombians, showing the country's ongoing struggle with violence. The boy was both someone who did wrong and, in some ways, a victim of Colombia's harsh realities. His actions made the country face the results of not caring for its most vulnerable. The tragedy was as much about lost innocence as it was about lost leadership. Because the shooter was only 15 years old at the time of the crime, his case was handled by Colombia's juvenile court system, which is designed specifically for minors. This system operates differently from adult courts, with a focus on rehabilitation rather than punishment. In court, the teenager admitted he was guilty of several serious crimes: attempted murder, attempted robbery, and illegally carrying weapons. His confession was a key moment in the trial, and it set the stage for the legal process that followed. On August 28, 2025, the judge sentenced him to 7 years in a juvenile detention center, the maximum sentence allowed for a minor under Colombian law. This sentence reflected the limits of the juvenile justice system, even in cases involving grave offenses. Instead of being sent to an adult prison, he would serve his time in a facility focused on rehabilitation and education, showing the system's commitment to helping young people change their lives and reintegrate into society. However, a legal complication made the case even more complex. When he confessed, Uribe was still alive, so the charge remained attempted murder, not homicide. This technicality would have a lasting impact on the outcome. After Uribe's death, Colombian law prevented the charge from being changed to murder, even though the victim had died. The legal system was bound by the rules in place at the time of the confession. Many Colombians were outraged, feeling the sentence was far too light for the killing of a presidential candidate. The outcome sparked anger and disbelief across the country. The case ignited a national debate about justice, accountability, and whether the juvenile system is equipped to handle such serious crimes. People questioned if the law truly served justice in this case. Some argued that the law had worked as intended, protecting minors from harsh punishment, while others saw it as a failure to deliver real justice for such a tragic event. The trial highlighted just how complicated it is to punish a child who was manipulated and used by adults for political violence. It raised difficult questions about responsibility and the limits of the law. In the end, the result left Colombia divided, searching for answers and wondering how justice should be served when children are involved in such serious crimes. Authorities knew the teenager hadn't acted alone. His confession confirmed he was a small part of a bigger plan. Investigators tracked the weapon to someone who helped him and found a criminal group behind the plot. 5 adults were arrested and charged with severe murder for their roles in the killing. The search for the real masterminds became more intense, with suspicions falling on FARC groups that disagreed with Uribe's strict views. These groups, still active despite the peace agreement, had clear reasons to target him. The investigation is still happening, with the main people who planned the crime still free. The case showed how important it is to break apart the groups that allow such violence. Justice for Uribe needs more than punishing the shooter. It demands showing who ordered the killing. The country waits for answers, determined to stop future attacks on its democracy. Uribe's killing brought back memories of Colombia's dark past, reminding people of the 1980s and 90s when political killings happened all the time. Drug lords like Pablo Escobar fought a war against the government, targeting politicians and journalists. In 1989, presidential candidate Luis Carlos Galán was killed at a rally, a chilling similarity to Uribe's fate. The peace agreement of 2016 brought hope, but not all armed groups gave up their weapons. FARC groups that disagreed and drug dealers remained active, threatening the fragile peace. Uribe's murder shattered the feeling of safety Colombians had started to feel. Recent attacks, including bombings and drone strikes, showed the ongoing danger. The tragedy was a clear reminder that Colombia's fight between peace and violence is far from over. Uribe's death became a symbol of the country's unfinished fight for stability. For the Uribe family, the killing was a sad repeat of history. Miguel's grandmother, Diana Turbay, was kidnapped and killed by the Medellin cartel in 1991. Her death deeply affected Miguel, inspiring him to work for the public and for peace. He entered politics determined to build a safer Colombia, honoring her memory. The cruel irony, he became a victim of the same violence he fought against. The family's pain became a national story, showing Colombia's cycle of loss and bouncing back. In August 2025, Miguel's father, Uribe Londono, announced his own run for president. He promised to continue his son's work and fight for the ideas Miguel died defending. Their private sadness became a public cause, keeping the Uribe name on the ballot. The family's tragedy turned into a movement for change. Their story is a small example of Colombia's struggle with violence and hope. The Uribe legacy now stands as both a warning and an inspiration. The killing of Miguel Uribe Turbay is a turning point for Colombia. It shows the constant threat of political violence, even after years of progress. The use of a teenage killer by criminal groups shows how weak democracy still is. This tragedy could cause fear and division or bring Colombians together to protect their democracy. The country faces a choice: go back to conflict or face violence with new determination. The widespread disapproval of the attack offers hope for unity. How Colombia responds will decide its future. Whether fear rules or the memory of Uribe inspires a stronger, more fair society. The path chosen now will shape the country for generations to come.